and welcome back to Pastor Plek's podcast. So glad all of you are joining us as recording live here in Austin, Texas. And joining me this morning, we have a special panel of people, and I'm pretty excited about this morning. And in fact, this is one probably that's going to go viral instantly. Aaron, did you know that?
Yeah, I think so.
And so Aaron Swanlund's with me. Aaron, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone.
And I also have Jordan Smith. Can you say hello to everybody?
Howdy.
And then, of course, Kaylor Reiter. I'm so glad that you are here joining us as well.
Happy to be here, Chris.
All right, so this panel is unique in that there are 3 out of the 4 people seated here that have same-sex attraction, and we're going to be talking about that specifically and how to battle that, and what that looks like just in life, especially when a culture sort of is angled toward you. There's the inner you that you should go and find your feelings, and that's the real you, and let that real you come out. Because if you don't, you're living a lie, and you don't want to live a lie. You need to express how you feel inside and go fully for it. So I wanted to kind of just start there, and I'm going to start here with Aaron on my right. Aaron, talk to me about just same-sex attraction for you, like where it hit you. I don't know if hit you is the right word for that, but the big question that people always ask me, do you think if you have same-sex attraction, you are born that way, or is that derived through something? Give me sort of the perspective you have, Aaron.
Yeah, so I think for me, everything really started just like as I was beginning in puberty, and I saw that there was something different, just like I think overall in my interests, and obviously like in my attraction towards other people, and just so for me, going through middle school and then into high school, like I really saw that there was that was there, but it's never something that I've really felt like comfortable with at all. Like I always felt spiritually uneasy because I came to faith in middle school. And so it kind of, that was kind of all coinciding at the same time. And so as I was beginning in my walk with the Lord, like I was also experiencing this and kind of, having this be a thing in my life. But there was never really that. I was always uncomfortable with it.
But you grew up in like the Midwest. So it's not, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not like, there were people outside picketing, like gay rights or LGBTQ plus stuff going on. So there wasn't a push for that, but probably there wasn't a push against it really that much either, because it probably just wasn't talked about.
Right, yeah. And, like for me, like it's not really been something that I've, haven't spoken about this until, just like maybe a few years ago. So growing up and, going through middle and high school, like it was not something that I really ever spoke about or expressed.
Why not? Well, give me the reasoning for that.
I think just because it was something that I felt like I was going to outgrow it. I felt like it was going to be something that, once I got past like being in school, it was something that would kind of like settle itself out. And so, yeah.
And so here you are.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a sec. So let's go back to Jordan. Jordan, you've been on Pastor Plek's podcast many a time. So welcome back, and talk to me. Just review us real quick on your experience with same-sex attraction.
Yeah, for me, I think it was even earlier than for Aaron. I mean, I remember having like stupid crushes on kids when I was in Sunday school. Obviously, it was nothing sexual, but for me, it's just always been there, I think, as long as I can remember. Growing up, for me, I kind of hid it because it seemed abnormal. You have all the kids, derogatory thing people will say all the time is like, oh, that's gay and all that. And for me, it's like, I'm very logical. So immediately, okay, gay equals bad. So you need to do whatever you can to repress any stereotypical gay mannerisms. That way you can sort of blend in. And that was my life for quite a long time. I don't think I came out till early 20s. But it was always just very alienating. Felt alone, felt just different, and didn't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, and so since that you came out with just kind of, hey, this is where I'm at, has that been easier, harder, angrier? Where do you go with all that?
I think it's been pretty similar. I never really dated anyone. I've never been in a relationship, so it wasn't really different before and after coming out or just throughout my life. It's been more eye-opening as far as Christianity goes, just because, obviously it says it's wrong. Like I said, I'm very logical, so anything I read in the Bible, I believe is truth. So, it says it's wrong, but at the same time, like you said earlier, it feels very innate and like this is the way I was born. So that's just been hard for me to deal with because it's like a cognitive dissonance between the two things.
Yeah. And walk me through that, because this is where your faith has become obviously very real to you. And is there parts where you're like, how do you not just go to the Bible and like, well, that was for, that time period. We have now arrived at a new age and stage. And so we've got to interpret the Bible through the lens of the culture. I mean, why did you not go that route? Or because there's plenty of gay affirming churches. There's plenty of gay affirming communities that, in fact, most of the culture would be like, Jordan, why are you not just sort of going for it?
Yeah, I mean, again, kind of like what I said earlier, very logical in nature. So you can't, for me, it's always been you can't cherry pick what you want to believe in the Bible. Like, if you do that, you're creating your own God.
Right.
Like, essentially, you either believe it or you don't. And gay affirming churches, I just don't agree with, because that's not what I see in the Bible. I mean, it seems very clear, both in the Old Testament and through Paul's epistles and everything, that it's wrong. I mean, even for me, I look at it from a natural standpoint as well. Like, male and female go together to reproduce. Like,
Right.
so it seems off just even from a natural standpoint as well.
Okay, so you say that it feels off. And so you being the off one, kind of like, oh, that's gay. Like, that's bad. Do you feel a sense of, I'm off, I'm bad? And if so, how are you able to reconcile that so that you're not just like self-loathing all the time?
I think reconciling that comes just from believing that I'm a child of God. We're all born into sin.
Right.
We all have different sin struggles. So what makes mine any different? Obviously, like, the culture will say, again, it's okay. You just be you. Do what's in your heart.
Right.
But being a Christian doesn't mean following cultural norms.
Wow. We're in Austin, Texas, and you're hearing that, and it's just wild to me that you would go against the grain, and that's powerful. So thanks for sharing that, because it feels like no one would agree. Like, who would ever say that, especially in Austin? All right. Kaylor, let's talk about you. I've known you since you were like a teenager back in the day, and so it's not like when you were a teenager, it's not like nobody didn't know that you were same-sex attracted. Like, that was pretty clear even then, right? I mean, we weren't like, wonder which way he's going to go. So talk to me about, what it was like for you growing up, same-sex attraction. You go to college, hey, I'm gay, and that's okay. Talk to us through that process for you.
Okay. So growing up, my family's always been accepting, regardless of like which gender I chose, like, to love and everything. And so it's like, honestly, I was very fortunate enough to have a family that always supported and stood by my side, because there are people in this world that don't like when people are different, and it's really sad, because like, for me personally, I feel like the gay community is a very loving and accepting community, regardless of like what trials they've gone through in their lives. They've persevered through all that, and they still manage to love other people, and so I personally had a great relationship like that with my family. So I was like, okay, high school, like middle school, really, I was kind of like wishy-washy, because I had a couple girlfriends and I never really dated a guy in middle school. And then it's like I got made fun of because I wore tie-dye, and it was a rough time.
Tie-dye pretty much is just, that's the thing. That says you're gay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't know that, because I probably would make a mistake of wearing tie-dye. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so it's like I've gotten a lot of nicknames, and they weren't fun.
What were the nicknames?
Faggot, Gaylor. Gaylor was the most hurtful, just because like it rhymes with my name. I'm like, okay, got it.
Good one.
And so at that time, I was like, man, like, I can't believe these people are bullying me, and everything. And so I hid that portion of me. And so in high school, I dated a guy, but then it's like I hung around with other Christians just to hide it, you know. And it's like,
So did you date a guy and hang around with Christians at the same time, or was it like I'm dating a guy and then no, I'm not gonna date a guy, I'm with Christians now, or
it was actually before I hung out with the Christian people crowd, and so it's like I broke it off with him. He was a bad influence, and then it's like, all right, I'm gonna hang out with them, and then I just noticed there was a kind of like a change in me that I always put up a guard. You know, I was never vulnerable with them just because like,
the Christians.
yeah.
Yep.
And I was just like, okay. So I just like pushed all that feelings under the rug. I was like, whatever. It was like, I'll just conform to what other people want me to do. And so I was like, okay. And then I came out to my mom senior year. She was like, oh, I already knew.
Yeah.
Since I was like 3. I was like, oh, got it. Okay. And so she loved and accepted me for who I was. And so college comes in, and I was still like on like the fence of like, oh, should I be more open about it or should I be on the fence? Yeah. And so it's like, over the time I like really like embraced that. I was like, okay, I am gay, you know, but then it's like, it was a very hard struggle because
why again, this is I know this seems like a weird thing for me to question, like why it's hard, because like, of course it's hard, it's your story. The part that I have a hard time with is if the culture is saying be gay, go for it. And maybe it's not saying it as loud as I'm thinking it's saying it, if that makes sense.
Oh, it definitely is saying it loudly.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I appreciate that. So if the culture is like screaming at you to not only be gay, but to kind of come, like, let your light shine of your gayness, let's go, why the struggle?
Well, because you have to also understand, Texas is a very conservative state, you know, and so where I went to college is a very white dominant with older conservative people, you know, and so it's like, for me personally, I had to be on my pins and needles on what I say, how I say, and what I do.
When I think of, because San Marcos, right? Like when I
San Angelo.
Sorry, San Angelo. So when I think of San Angelo, sorry about that. San Angelo. When I think of a college town, I don't think old people.
Oh, well, then you have definitely not been to
I have not been there. Okay. In general, when I think about that, I'm like, wow, maybe you see the old guy with the cane walk into the store once but it's usually going to be young people doing young people things. So, but maybe not. So
yeah, it wasn't that. It was more of like, it was more dominant, but it was still a college town.
Okay.
But it's like, there was still like a high population of older adults there.
Okay.
And so
how would they call you out? I mean, like, how would this?
They would honestly just like give me dirty looks, and sometimes they would just like, honestly, like, I wouldn't say spit, but it's just like they would like make those type of remarks near me, and it's like
anti-gay remarks or something.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, you know, me being gay, it comes with a price, you know. And so I was like, I'll accept it, you know. And so all the stuff that I've endured over the last 5 years there, I have pushed it under the rug. I was like, I'm not gonna let it feel me. I was like, okay. And then.
But did you know any of those people personally?
No.
Okay, so this is wild to me. Again, the people you don't know and probably don't care about had an effect on your emotions, even though there was probably a whole bunch of people that really loved and supported you.
Yes.
Okay, so talk to me about, and I know this seems like I'm going way off the charts here, but talk to me about that. Like, why did you let those people who you don't even know, who had flippant comments every now and then, affect you when you had a whole group of people who thought you were great?
Well, at that time, I was that people pleaser.
Okay, fair enough.
So it was like
everywhere you were like, I'm going to please you and you and you. Is that kind of it?
Yeah,
okay.
And then also it was like it kind of stung just because like people who either went to church who didn't, like they were really saying mean things, and it was just like, okay, it was like, first off, I was just like, why would I let it affect me? They're just words at the end of the day.
Sure.
But it also still hurts that it's like, wow, these random people who don't know me at all are really trying to attack me and be like, oh, what you're doing is the worst thing you could do in this world. And it's like, why? Like, why are you doing this? And then it's like, I lost a friend, not to suicide, but it's like, he was gay. He went to a camp where they prayed the gay away. And then he said that came back after winter break, I'm going to hell and this and that. I was like, okay. I was like, fine. You know, it's like, do you want to give me that text, like, evidence right there, you know? Because, like, at the end of the day, it's like, I will bring myself to hell because my free will. God will never, you know? And so, for me, it's just like, even though, regardless of what your stance on is, like, oh, me being gay is, like, if you agree with it or not, for me personally, you should never try to belittle or condemn someone because at the end of the day, who are we to judge? You know, it's like, and that's where my motto is, like, I will always be happy. I will always show love and respect to everyone, because like if I get upset, I'm going down to their level, and I'm like, obviously my mom raised me right.
Yeah, well, man,
And it's like,
I have a lot to learn because I always go down to my 8-year-old's level all the time, and I have to really work on that. Anyway, so all right, so talk to me then about like, so you're experiencing that, you're fully out or not fully out at that in San Angelo?
I was fully out.
Okay, so you're fully out, having a boyfriend at this time?
No, I actually didn't date anyone in college.
Why not?
Well, because I was like, I was
Playing
full-time
the field.
student, and
Okay.
I was just
No.
like, I didn't really want to.
You didn't have time for that.
No, because I was in like 7 other clubs, and so I was like, when did I ever have time? So
Okay.
I was always busy, so I was just like, it was just irrelevant for me to like date someone.
Okay. So you graduate from college, big deal, big win for you.
Heck yeah, 5th year.
That's pretty amazing. Way to go. And what was your degree in?
Social work.
Social worker. All right. So then you graduate, and then talk to me about dating beyond graduation.
Yeah, so I didn't really date until after my trip from Germany in May. And then I met a really good guy. I'm not going to say his name. I don't want to exploit him. But he was a very good person. He's respected me for my flaws, good things, bad things. You know, it's like we connected on a deeper level. He accepted me for being a Christian, you know, and he was raised Catholic. And I actually, like, that was one of the main reasons why I, like, fell in love with him, was because, like, he had, like, he was raised Christian, you know, and so it was like, awesome.
He had values.
Yeah, you know, and so it's like, as time progresses, you know, it's just like, I didn't really, like, hit any, like, feelings of, like, doubt in this relationship until after, like, I proposed. And so
You proposed. You said, "I want to marry you."
Yes.
Like, got down on one knee, the whole
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
And a very romantic experience.
It was because I never thought I would actually do that in my lifetime, just because like I was all about like trying to make myself a better
What does your
version.
engagement ring look like, by the way? I know that seems like a weird
It was
question.
a really basic
kinda
Amazon ring.
Okay.
It was a solid gold ring.
Was it have a diamond on it? Or
No.
okay, so
He
you
was-
go masculine on the ring.
Heck yeah, he
Okay.
even asked it. He even said that.
Okay, I'm
Exactly.
just curious. I just didn't know what you would do. Sorry, I don't know.
So
Okay,
you're saying you felt no conviction before the proposal?
Yes, just because like I felt like I didn't like I knew Jesus, but I felt like I was leaning towards like I really want to feel love, you know, and it was like I love this human being, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like I was like, even though it was like something in my gut was telling me, it's like don't do it, and I just like I didn't listen to it, you know.
Okay, yeah. Talk to me about that dichotomy. Why was there something in you saying don't do it when the culture is saying go for it? When your family's like, hey, touchdown, win, you found the love of your life. When social media probably was like, woo, way to go, Kaylor, you found the right one. And you guys were really clear what you wanted, not a girly ring, like a masculine ring. Win on that one. So you had it all figured out. Everything's going your way. And then where did this conflict come from?
It actually, so I started going to Gateway in North Austin,
Yeah.
and the pastor actually said, is like, before we left the service, was that, what are you trying to face reality with? And so I was thinking to myself, I was like, is my boyfriend or fiance at that time, is like, is he my giant or is he my reality? And so immediately after.
Yeah, give me the context of that. So giant or reality, what do you mean?
Well, it was mainly, I take it as a giant just because, like, facing reality, it kind of led into, it's like, what are you trying to face? Like, what are you trying to come to terms with?
Right, okay.
And so I interpret it as, what is my giant that I'm trying to, like.
Is it kind of like this is the David and Goliath thing, and
Yeah.
what's so difficult that's impossible that God can do?
Yeah.
And so the giant then for you was, is my relationship the giant? Is it my desire the giant? Or did you go that direction? Or
I actually felt like the relationship situation is like getting married to a guy was my giant. Because like at that time I started a Bible study and it was like really getting into the word.
Yeah.
And it was just like,
tell me about when you read the word. Like, so obviously, do you go to pastors to talk about homosexuality and go, does it convict you? Does it make you angry? Does it make it irrelevant? Give me your.
I actually don't go to those.
Okay,
pastors.
interesting. Okay, yeah. Talk to me what you go to.
Because like for me is like when I went to Gateway for the first time, I started this Bible study on my own side. It was like inner peace. You know,
Yeah.
it's like peace with God.
Right.
And so within that 10 days I was doing it, I felt something heavy after that second service. I talked to about facing that giant.
You felt something heavy, like
My heart, like I literally asked him,
like the
my
Holy Spirit is
thoughts.
on you or
Yes,
something. Yeah.
like I felt like, okay, I asked God, I was like, is like in my mind, I was just like, is my relationship the giant? And my heart came heavy. And I was like, wow, you know, and I was like, okay. So he was away for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And so I was like, all right, so I'm going to look into this. And then, it was, he came to me in a dream. It was pleasantly
Hold on,
unpleasant.
hold on. Who comes to you in a dream?
I felt like it was God.
Okay, so God comes to you in the dream, and what does he say?
He shows me 2 scenarios, actually, 2 lives. One with my fiance, and we're living in an amazing house, and it was like we're
Killing
so in love with each other.
Yep.
But it like fast forwarded into like old age, I guess.
Yeah.
And it wasn't meant to, like, it wasn't like I wasn't going up to heaven. You know, it was like I was going distant with God in that type of relationship, in that lifestyle there.
Wow.
And the second one was without him, but I was like more at peace. I was happier, you know, I was going towards God and everything. And so it's just like, it was a very difficult decision because like I had to choose my relationship that was so like, I loved him so much, or like God, you know? And so it was a very difficult decision. And so I made that decision, and I talked to my mom about it. It's like, Mom, I made my decision. And
What'd your mom say?
she was like, are you sure? I was like, absolutely. I was like, I can't ignore a dream like that, because like, it like when he was away, I felt so nauseous because of that feeling I felt at the service, and I was just like nauseous feeling and everything. And so when I made that decision, I stopped having those nauseous feelings in the morning. And
Wow,
so
it's
it's just
wild.
like,
Okay, so you make the decision, like, so the decision that you made is like, I've got to end this relation. Was he going to church with you though before that?
Mm-mm,
No.
no.
Was that one of the things he wouldn't do?
no,
or-
he would want to. It's just his schedule.
Oh,
like
okay.
he works.
Right,
You
right.
said he was a Christian, right?
Yeah, he was raised. Sorry, he
Raised
was
Christian.
Raised Catholic, actually. Yeah, and I was like, okay, cool. You know, I was like, I've did a little bit. I was like, I don't want to talk to angels though. I'm like, sorry. I was like, I respect it, but I was like,
Yeah. No, that's okay. That's wild. I mean, and you guys feel free to jump in, like,
Yeah,
because I
please.
feel like we had brunch about a couple weeks ago, and like you were right on. You hadn't made. I think you'd had this decision in your head, but you hadn't gone through with
it, yeah.
making this decision. So tell me about what happened when you or have you
Yeah,
did you go
I-
and talk to him? You're like, hey,
yeah.
I can't do that. What did you say?
So he came back by bus, and it was like 3 a.m, and so he asked me to pick him up. I was like, okay, cool, I'll pick him up, and then I drove him home to Bastrop.
Uh-huh.
And so he was half awake, and so, but I was like, during that time I was holding his hand, and I had an upset stomach. I was like, okay, I need to get this out. And I was like, okay, I have to. So I told him, it's like, all right, I gotta tell you this, because I was like, I'd rather be honest than like wait down the road. And so I told him, it's like, I told him about the dream and how I interpreted it. And so he was very shocked. He was very confused. And I told him, it's like, I understand your feelings, because obviously, yes, we were going to plan to get married, but it's like, I'm calling it off now, you know? And so obviously he had no words to say. And so I told him, it's like, this is my interpretation. It's like, I'm not doing this because I don't love you. I'm doing this because I love God more.
Wow.
You know, and it's like, at the end of the day, he is the only one that can bring me to heaven, you know? And so it's like, I would rather have that opportunity to go to heaven, you know? And it's like, and I texted him a couple weeks before he left. I was like, you know, by following Jesus, it will always cost you something. And I learned that at Gateway. And so I've lost friendships. I've lost other friendships with like, yeah. So it was like, I've talked to a couple people about my decision, and some of them have said, it's like, well, you're just gonna break his heart, and like they're feeding all these bad things. I was like, at the end of the day, yeah, I'm gonna break someone's heart, but he should understand, you know. And so in a couple days we'll be coming together to like talk more, because he was half awake. So we're gonna talk about it more, but my decision is final.
So talk to me, because this could, you know, if someone hears that, and if I were him, you know, I would say, well, maybe, Kaylor, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't marry a man. What it means is you shouldn't marry me, or somebody might say that. So like that's just not. This might be the wrong one, but not necessarily. Not, you don't have to marry a woman or be single. Like, what if someone said that to you? What would your response be on that? I'd be like,
Okay, you can believe whatever you want to believe. I mean, for like,
I love that, man. I mean, this is so countercultural, Kaylor.
I mean, it's like, for me, I don't like conformity. I really
Yeah.
don't. I think we were all made with our own unique personality. So it's
Yeah.
like, why are we going to conform to what
Yeah.
society says
Yeah.
or what the church says? You know what I mean? And so it's like, for me personally, I was just like, if I'm going to stay single, I'm going to stay single until God tells me, it's like, okay, you're going to marry a woman. You know,
Wow.
because I understand it's like, yeah, it says it evident right there in the Bible, man and woman, you know, right there. And so I know ultimately if that's part of his will and I'm trusting his timing on that, because I don't feel like it's going to be right now, just because like.
So talk to me, like, and this is like opening it to all of you, like because you guys have all the same view. Did you guys all go the same class, the same, the camp where they put you in a sweat box and say you better not be gay? Like, why do you guys all agree with God's word on this? Is it a cult, like the countercultural mandate, or is there the Holy? I mean, this is where like I think people hearing this, because the audience that we have is global, and you're going to have people in Amsterdam hearing this and thinking you guys are bonkers. So like I think that's the part where I really want you guys to kind of just speak to this, because clearly Austin is for everybody following your own heart to do whatever you want to do. And at Gateway and here at Wells Branch Church, there's a countercultural movement that, no one's sitting here around like going on picketing street corners like, don't be gay. There's just a reality of like, tell me what that reality is for you guys, just on how you all came to the same conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, I just, as I said, a lot of this started as I began my walk with Christ. And so, that I think to me was always, God's grace just always being greater than the feelings and the emotions that I was experiencing. And I think for me, just being someone who's more reserved and who's, more on the shyer side, it's not something
until people get to know you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Like you're a wild man. I don't know if you guys need to know Aaron. He is.
Yeah, you'll just have to bring me on for a few more podcasts. Just give it a few more episodes, and it'll be a little more exciting now.
The crazy will come out.
Yeah, it's like, Go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, so I just think that was also a big thing why like I didn't maybe, kind of like speak more about this. Like I've never had like a coming out moment. Like for me, like
this is the coming out moment.
It kind of like the first time that I ever spoke about this and like opened up to this was actually at my community group at the Davis community group, and that was I think 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it was a really big day of just kind of speaking about this to other people.
And how were you received?
Really well. I mean, everyone was like kind of just blown away that I would do that, and but just with love and just with compassion and just like an understanding of like that this is a struggle and so and just in my whole experience at the church in general, but I've always really just felt like I've seen God working in my life, and I've seen him lead and guide and direct me as I've grown and as I'm getting older, and just with things continuing on with as I go through school, and I have the Army coming up. So I just look at all these things, and I really see God at work in my life in a big way.
Yeah, we're praying that you get minor injury that precludes you from going to the military. So not enough to really hurt you, but enough. That's terrible. We're not.
Yeah,
we're
so
not praying that.
If I fall off the stage after we end this, we'll know that.
Chris would push you.
Yeah, it's like you've been such an asset of our church. The way you've really loved people well. If you guys don't know this, Aaron is the head of our benevolence ministry, and he doles out money to people that are in need, and it's just really special to see. He goes like. There's one thing to give somebody a check, that's one thing, but then he's moving people. He is ministering to people, visiting people in the hospital, visiting people at their home. It's just, I've watched you live out a Christ-like life with such intentionality and power that the Army is getting a real blessing. They don't even know what's coming. So I'm really excited for the Army in that, but I just hope that the reserves works out and you can be here forever. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, but Jordan, what about you? you hear that, that's his perspective, and you've kind of mentioned like that's just what it says, and you're a logical person. But like, logic in this day and age is like it's a lost art probably, and so you can kind of make anything logical.
Sure. I think kind of like Aaron, it shifted whenever I moved over to being a Christian and following God. I think you'd call that just Holy Spirit conviction. Like before that, I accepted myself as being gay, attracted to men, all that. I didn't necessarily see anything wrong with it. I mean, I was kind of ashamed of it, but when I converted over, it just, like Aaron said, I felt God working in my life. And I think that, I read a book called Case for Christ, which again, very logic-oriented. So just seeing, I mean, I had a pretty messed up backstory, but to summarize it, just a lot of anxiety, reclusion. So I didn't have a lot of friendships until I remember meeting a friend of mine, Zach, and him just kind of, we talked, my walls came down. He invited me to church. We talked a lot about God. And I remember going to bed the first night and crying like, hey, God, if you're real, let stuff like this keep happening.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. So I think the logic side of the book, as well as just seeing God's interaction over the years, has what's just solidified my belief in that.
Okay, yeah, that's wild. So, again, what, and maybe Kaylor, you can speak into this, because it's not like you're gonna be not gay so that you can be saved. It's because you are saved that you have desire to please God. Is that probably the best way to put that?
Yeah.
So tell people how they can receive Jesus. Again, like there is somebody in Amsterdam, there's somebody in South Africa. We have people listening all over the world. In Austin, Texas, clearly it's another place that probably are people listening. But like, tell them how they can have a relationship with God.
Well, for me personally, it's like I truly believe, and it was part of one of like the points in my Bible study that it's like God made our personalities intelligent. It's like He made every single parts of us. And I firmly believe that it's like, okay, if you're gonna be gay, that's okay, but don't act on it. Because they're all behaviors.
So yeah, you're distancing the behavior from the identity.
Yes. And so it's like, because for me, if I went straight, I do feel there would be a change in my personality. I don't feel like I would be the same as I am now if I went straight, and so I firmly believe that it's like, okay, if any of y'all, if y'all need Jesus, honestly, it's the best thing, because once you accept Him, it's like you will see a difference, because by following Jesus, it will cost you something, like I mentioned earlier.
It's free salvation when you believe that Jesus died on the cross for your sins and rose from the dead. But when you receive that, it costs you your whole life. You are now a follower of Jesus, and so you're following him.
And it's like, for me, I realized this, like, by following Jesus, you are a target. You will always,
talk to us about that.
So it's like, even though I did break it off, but I still have those temptations. It's like,
it's not like you're like, okay,
I'm done.
I don't love you anymore.
And so it's like, when I accepted Jesus fully into my life, I realized that it's a lot harder to live that Christ-centered life, because for me personally, I'm surrounded by temptation, negativity, like literally the devil around me, with all these bad influences, so it's like, I always try to tell myself to not indulge in that, just because it gives him, the evil one, that power, and so I always say loving, I always say happy, I will always, like, when people ask me, I was like, why do you wear a cross if you're gay? It's like, because I believe in Him. It's like, there's no ifs and buts. Like, I will firmly believe in Him until the day I die. Well,
it's
forever.
Wild. I love all the things you're saying. And just so, I just want to make sure this is clear. Because if you are listening and you're like, I want that difference. Because you guys keep talking about this thing inside you that kind of redirects you. And what we say, that's the Holy Spirit, right? So when you put your faith and your trust that Jesus died on the cross and then rose from the dead, you get baptized with the Holy Spirit. He puts His power in you. And so then you see the world differently. And so then all of a sudden you might have a desire, but you don't act on that desire because you want to please God. And that, to me, is I don't know if you can't bottle that, right? You can't, like, if you could, the weight loss people everywhere would be bottling that, because everyone has the desire to just feed themselves and gorge themselves until they puke. But then we don't, because we have to exercise some sort of self-discipline. Everybody has desires that we know we need to quench or repress or whatever, and then there are desires that we need to accentuate. And so I feel like that's part of it. So anyway, going back to that, so when you receive Christ, when you trust in him, then all of a sudden you have the ability to overcome temptation, overcome sin and darkness. Okay, so all right, so talk to me, all three. This is like open-ended. Like, what? Again, we're in Austin, so it's not like the gay community is going to be like, oh, that's cute. That's the right decision. Like, have you felt pushback, like you betrayal, how dare you, go against and conform to our cultural standards? Have you guys felt, seen, been accosted verbally in any way?
I mean, I haven't personally, but like this is just something that up until right now, like just being on this podcast, it's only something that I've spoken about within the church.
Right.
So it's not something that I've brought up to like
beyond church walls.
Yeah. So it's definitely something. I think that's been my biggest like worry and fear is like, man, like this is something that is like real for me, and it's a struggle. And it's like if I'm going to be true to Christ and honor him, then I have to be willing to be honest about the fact that it is a struggle,
Yeah.
So like just going forward in life, like that's definitely something that is a concern, but I know that, I have to trust in God, and I have to be obedient to him, and I have to honor him. So
It's wild. Yeah.
I'll speak into that a bit too.
Yeah,
like I got a decade on both of you guys. It is definitely a struggle. I would never downplay that. Even for me, like I got involved with church 10 years ago. I was in a young adult group, and you see them, they go from dating to engaged to married to kids, and I'm just sitting here kind of twiddling my thumbs, right? Like there is definitely a struggle in that, and that's why you have to rely on God. You have to trust in him. Like for me, it's about practicing remembrance and remembering how God has interacted in my life before, and trusting that he has a plan. And again, that is not easy. So please don't take it that way. Right. It's just an active choice. It is a struggle, and I just don't want to downplay that.
Yeah, let's go over the past 10 years, because let's talk about some of the struggles you've hit when, because you probably had crushes on guys or felt things for guys, and then that gets shut down, or you get rejected, or something happens. Like talk to me about that experience over the past 10 years, and really because I guarantee you there's people going like, that is impossible. Right. I mean, like, why would you? Anyway, talk to us about that experience, how hard it has been, and how you've sort of reacted to it.
I mean, I've been pretty fortunate in the fact that I haven't had anyone kind of not be my friend because of my sexuality.
Yeah.
I've been very open from the get-go. Like, I don't hide it. I've had some people kind of maybe weirded out by it, but they don't stop being my friend or anything. Like, you talk to 24-year-olds and they've never met a gay person before. So they just don't know how to react to it. And luckily, my friends handled it gracefully. The only negative experience I can think about is I told a guy I loved him, just obviously like as a friend once, and he kind of flipped out and was like, whoa, never say that again. And I was, but we're still friends today. It was just kind of a weird like hill.
It's like, not like that. Not like, oh yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, again, just seeing everyone else kind of, move on in their lives, progress to different life stages, it can feel like I'm being left behind and I think for me, it's just like, okay, God, like, I'm going to not pursue this, so can you kind of show me what you want me to pursue instead of that?
Is there a Bible verse? Is there, I get, you said things of remember events in your life, Bible verse that you sort of cling to in those moments? Because everybody has the dark night of the soul. Of like, you feel alone, you feel like it's common to humanity of like, nobody gets me, nobody understands me, like everybody has that. And where do you go personally to pull yourself out? Is that to a person, hey, remind me of the goodness of God? Is that to a Bible verse, God remind me of your goodness? Where do you go?
I think it's all of those things. God put people in your life, God put his word in your life, God put experiences in your life. for me, one of the big ones is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. You know, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Again, that means like don't engage in your understanding,
Right.
but trust in the Lord with all your heart. I'm repeating it again, but all that to say is, help me out, Chris. What's the end of that?
And he will direct your paths.
Yes, essentially, you just have to trust in him, and he's going to lead you. That's kind of a waiting process for me right now, but just trying to work in faith and be obedient and see where he takes me.
Yeah, I love that. What about you guys?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, like what Jordan spoke about, you know, just, you know, like Paul writes and talks a lot about, you know, getting your mind renewed in Scripture. And I think that that's been such an important part of, you know, this process of sanctification and just in dealing with this is that, you know, for me, like, you know, as I allow myself to be in the Word and to look at God's promises and to look at that, he says that, you know, he has this great plan for my life and purpose for my life. Like, you know, I look at that and I see that and I say, you know, I can't settle for something that's less than like what God has for me, you know, and I think that, you know, just allowing yourself to be, you know, caught up in how amazing God is and his word and like everything that he's promising and everything that he has for us. And it's like, it really begins to kind of overtake everything else and overtake all those other thoughts and thinking. And so to me, that's been a huge part of this experience is just really allowing myself to be transformed by God. And I think that this is an area where it's like, I've really like most acutely seen that transformative power of Christ and the work of the Holy Spirit in my life. And so like, this has been something that I feel that like God has used to bring me closer to him and just have this, you know, have this deep resolve that I'm gonna choose to trust in him and I'm gonna choose to follow him. And, you know, I'm not gonna settle for compromise and I'm not gonna settle for anything that's less than what Jesus died for me to have. So.
Love that. Okay, so I'm gonna go to a weird question. And I know, Jordan, I know you're answering this, but I'll throw it out to everybody. Have you guys ever tried dating women? I mean, I know that's like the question that kind of pops up in my head. Like, have you tried that? And if you have, what's been the experience?
Unique.
I've never dated before and I've never been in a relationship and I haven't had sex. Like, I've actually never kissed anyone before, so.
Way to go, Aaron.
Aaron? Not even your mother?
I guess mom, yeah.
But like this guy's a unicorn. It's like you sit there and you go, wow. All right, way to go.
So, but, you know, I think for me at this point, like, that attraction to women is, like, it's not there. And that desire to date and to be in a relationship, I don't have that right now, you know. And I don't know if it's just because I'm still kind of, you know, where I'm at in life. And so, but I just trust that.
What if like I set you up on a blind date? Would you go?
Maybe.
Could we do that? Maybe like we have like, we're going to set Aaron up on a blind date and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And then, but some girl will get her heart broken.
Yeah. I've always wanted to see, like, you know, like where they have someone, you have like men that you auction off on dates to like.
Oh my gosh.
I'd be willing to do that.
Fundraise for benevolence.
Right. Hey. All right.
I like that. Yeah.
Nicole, what do you bid? Okay. No, we're not going to do that.
Starting bid's $10,000.
That's right. $10,000. We need a building. Benevolence. Way better. Way better. Okay.
Well, for me, so I didn't want to treat a woman like a guinea pig.
Yeah.
Like you said, you break women's heart if you do stuff like that. That's my fear and why I don't want to pursue that unless it's something that.
But you have tried it.
I've tried it once.
How'd that go?
I mean, it was fine. She was a nice girl, but I felt no
vibe, chemistry,
whatever you want to call it. So we went on a couple dates, and then I was like, hey, I'm just not feeling it. And
did you share with her like, hey, I'm same-sex attraction. How do you feel about that? Or that never?
No, I'm
up?
not. You don't drop that bomb so
it's
early.
Like,
I feel like.
Hey, how you doing? I'm actually attracted to men, but I thought I'd give you a shot.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly how she'd feel, I'm sure. So.
All right, but Kaylor, you have dated girls.
Yeah, actually 4 women. Yeah,
okay, so how did that go?
I mean, honestly, who really knows how to date in middle school? Just because,
Fair
like,
enough.
You're still dealing with, like, testosterone, you know, hormones. So
Sure,
it's like
sure.
everything is in the mix. And so it's like, for me, I was, like, kind of, like, playing the field. And I enjoyed it, you know? I mean, it was great. But it's like, I mean, most of the time, those women actually use me to get back with their, like, ex-boyfriend. So like they would use me.
So you were
I was blinded.
you were
as
the
like,
rebound.
Oh wow, yeah. So
Wow.
I mean, but I mean,
rebound. There's nothing worse than that. I'm so sorry. Wow.
it's fine. I don't talk to them ever.
Yeah, that's right.
It's totally
You're
fine.
dead to me. Okay, no, I'm with you. All right, so yeah, I think that's interesting because I think if there was honesty and it's like I'm actually same-sex attracted, but I'd love to hang out and become friends because honestly, you want to marry your best friend, right? You don't want to. I think the falling in love, and this is where now I'm into a dating thing. When the falling in love and all of that, rainbows, butterflies, ice cream, unicorns. Like the reality of that is more imagination and Hallmark movies than it is reality. And I think what's hard for people that aren't married is it's hard to believe that. Because again, the culture's like, it's gonna be great and blissful and sex all the time and babies and everyone's gonna love each other. It's gonna be wonderful. There's a reason why people get divorced at such a high rate. And so like, I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, have you guys considered, and this is like, I moved from asking questions to giving advice, which is what you're never supposed to do in a podcast. But like, what do you guys think about that thought of like just kind of saying, hey, I want to be friends with you? Like, do you have any friends that are girls that you hang out with, Aaron?
Not really. I mean, not like, I have Melanie and Nicole.
Yeah.
And she's looking at me right now. I meant like outside of church, basically.
Yeah.
Like so.
Well, I mean, outside church staff is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I think it'd be good to meet someone in the church. But like, I think there's like, so exploring friendships, like, I don't know, going to the movies, or it doesn't have to be a date, but man, that could be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Not.
I mean, absolutely. Yeah. Like, and I think that, like kind of what Kaylor had talked about earlier, just being a student and, like over the past years and just having to do that and just, balancing that and work, just kind of that taking up time. And now like, going into the Army and like that's coming up. So.
And then you're going to be in the Army and that's hard to date when you're in the Army.
But yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely something where like, I think that, I could see myself, getting, dating and getting married to a woman. And I think that, but I just feel like it's something that like, if that's the desire, if that's like part of God's plan for my life, then like he'll put that there.
Yeah.
And like he'll, that will kind of, come to fruition. So
like what about you, Jordan? Do you have any girlfriends that you just sort of hang out with, or is it never been a thing?
I do, and we had made pacts to get married at 35 if neither of us got married, but she's married now.
Dang. I was like, oh, we were really close.
But I think for me, I'm kind of in this viewpoint of what you said of just pursuing friendships, because that one girl I went on a couple dates with, it felt like I was just kind of forcing it. It was off a dating app, all of that, and that's.
So are you open to because after this goes worldwide, you're going to have lots of requests for friendship. In fact, if you want to meet Jordan or any of these men, you can just text us 737-231-0605. Sort of kidding, sort of not. But what I mean is like, if someone were to say, hey, Jordan, let's hang out, would you feel like a guinea pig or like I'm their pet project, or would you be like, oh, I'll hang out with you?
Yeah, I'm open to hanging out.
Okay, just curious. All right, that's. What about you, Kaylor? Would that be like a weird thing?
No, because I mean, I
Do
hung
it
out
all
with
the time.
sorority chicks from college, so I'm like, I do it all the time. I mean, it's like I have a better understanding of women, but I have like a more genuine relationships with women more, just because of my personality, and I can empathize with them and everything. And so with men, I have a lot of guy friends, but it's like, do I hang out with them a lot? It just depends on who they are, just because like I have a very vast variety of like
You are
person.
a unique person.
I'm very social.
You are very
I really am.
You are. No, there's no doubt about it. All right. Well, hey, listen, if you have any questions about the topic of homosexuality and how Christ engages that, we didn't take a look at really any of the Bible passages, which is sort of wild. But if you've got any questions, text us in at 737-231-0605 or go to pastorplek.com. We would love to hear from you. And on that, because the Bible is pretty clear from Old Testament, New Testament, that homosexuality is against God's design, because God designed a man and a woman. And I've written extensively, and we've talked about that extensively here at Wells Branch Church. But any other thoughts on that before we wrap this up, on theology, on social, maybe that's anthropology? Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, something that really encouraged me and got me very, very hopeful and loving for God.
Yeah.
And for you guys who are watching and everything, who are questioning and everything.
Yeah.
One story in the passage, like in the Bible, that I will always love enduring is the lost sheep in the parable.
Oh, wow.
For me,
Luke 15.
yes. And for me, it got me so emotional because like we are all lost sheeps, you
Nice.
know, and God could have honestly made perfect Christians, you know, but
Yeah.
when I look at the Old Testament, they're all broken people, and seeing how God changed their lives, that's literally what he's doing with us here on this panel and all of y'all, you know, is like he's somehow changing y'all's earthly desires to fit his plan. And for me, that's always so
Wow.
empowering. And so I always like love sharing that because like we're all lost sheep. Like no matter how far we fall short
Yeah.
to him, he will always somehow wrap his like rope, you know, to like capture you back in, you know.
Love that.
Lasso
You
you
know.
in.
My bad. But I mean, it's true. I mean, it's like we are all lost sheep, and it's so happy because I never grew up with a dad. And
Yeah.
so it's like to have a heavenly father to essentially be the good shepherd, you know, and it's like
Kayla,
to
that's awesome.
love me, to like reel me in whenever I lose sight of him. Like, it's just amazing. And so it's like, it's very empowering. So,
So
thank you.
I feel like this episode will create lots of questions. So if you do, I'd love to have all these three gentlemen back and we could do this all over again. But text us in 737-231-0605. Any questions? You kind of want to discuss this. You want us to kind of go deeper into this. We would love to talk about it. But hey, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. And so from our house to yours, have an awesome week of worship.